Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to round off this little Scottish mini-series that I've been filming for you during my short trip home here in February of 2020. And for this review we're going to return to one of my favourite Scottish breweries and take a look at a beer that I think will be really pretty damn special actually. So for this review then we're going to head down to the Borders and we're having a look at another beer from Tempest Brewing Company. This one is called the Double Denim and they're describing it as a virgin oak aged smoked barley wine. It comes in at 12.5% ABV and I think this beer will just be an absolute monster. If you've watched the channel before you will know that I have a love of smoked beer. You know, the Bamberg Rauch beers was where my whole love of craft beer began, thanks to my friend Daniel, and when I saw this in Bottle Barn in Edinburgh I thought I need to get one of these. So yeah, I think this will be a very nice way to kind of round off the Scottish mini-series for the moment, and hopefully this is another very good beer. But in my experience, Tempest tend to be pretty damn good at whatever style you try from them. Probably my favourite beer that I've had from them so far was the Old Parochial, which was a lovely Scotch ale. That's the best Scottish brewed Scotch ale that I've come across so far actually. So if you come across that one, I really recommend that you try it out. And the Marmalade on Rye double IPA is also very good. The Brave New World IPA and the In the Dark We Live and In the Dark We Die, the black IPAs that I had, were also very, very nice. But generally, Mexicake, their Imperial Stout's also great, forgetting about that one, but generally these guys are a very, very good brewery, arguably the best in Scotland in my experience, and they do a whole host of different styles actually, and they always tend to do them very well. So check out Tempest Brewing if you get the chance. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Tempest Brewing Company before. No doubt I will add some more at some point in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Scottish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, usually whenever I make it home to Scotland for a little while. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely, hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Tempest Brewing Company then, on to my brewery notes. So Tempest Brewing was founded back in 2010 by Gavin and Anika Meiklejohn. So Anika had trained as a chef in New Zealand, but the couple returned to Scotland in 2007 to run the Cobbles Bar in Kelso down in the Scottish Borders. So Gavin had previously worked for the Whistler Brewing Company in British Columbia over in Canada, so he had already had, he already really had an appreciation of craft beer, and he'd also taken some brewing courses in Sydney and Australia as well, and then he homebrewed in his garage with a small 50-litre kit when he was living in Wellington in New Zealand. But Gavin is joined at the brewery by Alan Rice, who acts as the business development manager for the company, and he'd previously worked for Stewart Brewery in Edinburgh, who are somebody else that I really recommend that you check out. They've got some awesome New Zealand hopped IPAs actually. But this brewery was previously housed in old dairy buildings in Kelso, and it was largely, this brewery was largely homemade and engineered to produce really kind of big flavoured beers on a very, very small budget, and it worked very well for them in their early years. But their beers proved to be very, very popular, and they had to expand basically. So they moved to their current and bigger home in the Tweedbank Industrial Estate in Galashiels, which is where they still are at the moment. But in June of 2019 they submitted plans to build a new brewery building with a bar and a restaurant on the site of the old Eildon Mill, which is very close to the Tweedbank railway station at the end of the new Borders Railway. I say new, but it's been around for a couple of years now. But my experience of this brewery is very positive. These guys have a go at a lot of different styles. They're starting to experiment a wee bit with sours and things now, like gozes and stuff like that. But back in the day when they were releasing Brave New World and stuff, those beers are very, very solid, and they're still producing a lot of different things. I mean, whatever style I've had from this brewery, be it like a West Coast IPA, the hazy IPA that I had recently as well, the black IPAs, the In the Dark We Live, In the Dark We Die, what else have I had? The Old Parochial, the Mexicake. You know, this is a very, very well-rounded brewery, I have to say. Whatever style you get from these guys, in my experience, you're in for a very good quality beer. So if you're interested in Scottish beers, Tempest is a very, very good place to start. I just wish they were a little bit easier to get, but hopefully when they've got their new brewery up and running, we start to see their beers throughout Europe a little bit more. I've only ever seen Mexicake in Copenhagen, actually, which I was really pleased about, but hopefully they become a little bit more readily available over on the continent. I can review them a bit more regularly for you. But yeah, that's all you really need to know about Tempest Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more, of course, you can check out the brewery website in the description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. You might get some more news on their new brewery and things like that. And of course, if you're interested in all the different beers that they've done, you can check out the Rate Beer and Untappd pages as well. These guys are fairly prolific and seem to release at least one beer every month from what I've seen. So yeah, definitely check them out. And the last time I filmed a review for these guys, when I was home, it was the In the Dark We Die. They actually got in contact with me and invited me down to the brewery, which I need to take them up on. I didn't have time during this trip, unfortunately, but that's something I will take them up on at some point in the future. So you may well see a Meet the Brewer video with Tempest. I meet the brewer, meet the owner, hopefully, with Tempest at some point soon. So fingers crossed we can get that to work. But let's get on and actually have a little look at this beer itself then. So as I mentioned to you at the start of the video, this one it's called the Double Denim Virgin Oak Aged Smoked Barley Wine. It's a barley wine coming in at 12.5% ABV, so it is a little bit of a monster. Lovely artwork on this one, I have to say. And in my experience, the high alcohol beers that I've had from Tempest have been really pretty special. But it says, we've taken our gargantuan amount of Bavarian beech smoked barley. I'm betting this is Weirmann from Bamberg, who do make the Rauch malt that goes into Spezial and to Schlenkerla. But we've taken a gargantuan amount of Bavarian beech smoked barley, renowned for its rich smoky bacon flavour, and filled our mash tun to its maximum, not once but twice, to create an intense, high-strength barley wine. This beer was given a lengthy boil to add a depth of caramel sweetness, and once fermented was aged in brand new American virgin oak barrels, adding a further layer of fresh oak smokiness. Double mashed, double smoke, and double denim. So yeah, I just wonder if the denim is a reference to the American barrels. It doesn't really say much about that side of it actually, but there you can see on the bottle cap there is the Tempest Brewing Company symbol, and you can also see that up here. There you can see Tempest Brewing Company, and there is the little T down there as well. It almost looks like a horse saddle or something. Someone did tell me exactly what it was at some point before, but it looks very, very nice actually. Beautiful artwork on these beers, I have to say. They do release some of their beers in cans actually, so you might see these beers in the tall boy cans as well, but usually the big high alcohol special edition ones like this are still released in the 330ml bottles. The first ever beer I had from these guys though, which I think was called Marmalade on Rye, it was an early version of the one that's available now, the double IPA, and that was in a half-litre bottle, and that was brewed as a collaboration with Brewdog Edinburgh in one of the first collab fests, if I remember correctly. But yeah, 12.5% smoked barley wine. What's not to like about this? I think this is going to be awesome. As I said earlier, my whole love of craft beer started off when my friend Daniel introduced me to the Bamberg Rauch beers. So yeah, I think this one is a very nice way to round off my trip to Scotland this time. So yeah, look at that. This is going to be a monster. You can just tell from the pour. I don't think I've ever had a barley wine that is quite that dark, but when it's got these big Rauch malts in it, really not surprising. So yeah, this is quite a hazy beer actually. If I hold this up to the light, this is a very dark sort of chestnutty colour. To be honest with you, it's actually not that far away from this brown glass in terms of its colour. So a really dark sort of chestnutty, Coca-Cola-y, what would you say, rosewoody type colour, you know, something like that. Lovely dark brown. You do get, it does get a little bit lighter and more chestnutty if you shine the light through it, but that looks like a beautiful beer. You can see when this one poured, it had a very thin, you'd be lucky if it was a quarter layer of head on it, and I would say that's a kind of light beige kind of colour there. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones heading up towards the bottom of that head there, but you know, overall it does look very, very nice, I have to say. Yeah, one of the darker barley wines I've come across, but as I said, when it's barrel aged, it's got smoke malt in it, that is kind of to be expected, but I have to say it looks very impressive, and at 12.5% that head is going to fade away quite quickly. Actually, it's always the case with high alcohol beers. So yeah, let's have a look at the aroma of this one and see how we get on. Oh geez, yeah, this is ridiculous, honestly. Straight away you get that lovely big smokiness out of it. So as I've told you before in videos, when we talk about smoked malts in Scotland, and if you a good beer to drink this with, if you wanted to just have to destroy yourself with smoke, you know, if you could get a bottle of old parochial as well, that is a, you know, there's Scotch ale, they use peated malts in that. The key thing about smoked malts is if you take German smoked malts, they come across as very sort of meaty and woody, whereas if you have the Scottish smoked malts, they're a little bit more peaty and kind of grassy. There's a really interesting contrast there, but these Rauch malts are just crazy. I mean, this, and to me, they're even more prominent in this than they are, for example, in the Eiche Doppelbock, the oak Doppelbock that you get at Christmas time from Schlenkerla. How did Tempest do this? I mean, this is just mental. I'm just going to say kudos to them for that. I'm really glad that I kind of just came across this beer. I came home at the right time. So yeah, that's one of the things I love about this brewery as well. If you go to the bottle shops in Edinburgh, you will stumble across something really, really quite random from Tempest. It's always a nice treat. But yeah, straight away with this one, you get that lovely big smoky note out of it. I don't think it's right to describe it as barbecue. You get that, you can really smell the beechwood in this. It's a lovely big kind of meaty, steaky, it's got a little bit of a porky kind of quality to it as well. It's a very meaty thing. It's not, it's like honey glazed pork or something like that. It really reminds me of that actually. But this is even stronger than, some people complain about how strong Schlenkerla is. I've never smelled a beer that is quite as smoky as that. That's very, very impressive. But if it's a double mashed smoked beer, it kind of makes sense, to be honest with you. This is, you know, I think this is going to be one of these beers where I would, like I say with garlic, if I could overdose on garlic and die that way, I'd be a happy man. If I could overdose on Rauch malts and die that way, I'd probably be quite happy with that as well. That's a fair way to go in my mind. But yeah, the smokiness on this is just insane. Craziness. But underneath that, of course, you get the smoothness of the wood. There's some brown bready notes in there as well. You can get some kind of bread crusty qualities too. The malt base in this one, I think it's Munich. It's got a bit of crystal, and there's something else in there as well as those Rauch malts, right enough. The hops were Columbus, if I remember right from looking on the website. But lovely big woody base to it. On top of that, you get the brown bread. You get a little bit of the bread, the kind of more toasty bread crusty note in there as well. A lot of, you know, woody quality, like I said, and then you've got that meaty, smoky quality in there. It's a mix between like a kind of beefy, steaky sort of thing and a kind of almost charred pork fat or something like that. It really is like that, a little bit bacony, hickory bacon or something like that. It's quite, it's really quite interesting. There's a wee bit of a kind of brown sugary note in there, and it comes across with a very, it's difficult to tell how sweet the caramel is, but I mean, if they're saying this one's had a long boil, what happens with that is you get the sugars all sort of caramelising together, and it's quite common with barley wines to, you know, do it for like 4 hours or even a bit longer actually. This one, going by the colour of it, I think you're looking at maybe at least a 4 or 5 hour boil on this one, possibly even longer. You know, you've definitely got a bit of that brown sugary note in there, and it comes across as very highly kind of caramelised. But I would say it's got the toasty elements to it, but you can detect a little bit of sweetness in there, but the smoke really dominates the aroma here, which is what you'd expect. On the hoppy side of things, you do get a wee bit of earthiness and a wee bit of grassiness to this one. But to be honest, again, the smoke dominates the aroma, so they come across as more like subtleties rather than anything else. And in terms of fruitiness, I mean, there is a wee bit of a red fruity kind of thing there, and because of how prominent the smoke is, it comes across as a little bit sharp. It's not really right to say it's cherries, it might be a little bit kind of like plummy or something like that, but you'll pick that out just at the very front of the nose. So yeah, but you really have to search for the fruitiness in this one. The smokiness is just dominating it. Actually, there's no real charred elements to this for me. It's as I say, it's more of a smoky thing rather than a charred kind of thing that's going on in this. But when it's a barley wine as well, you would expect a little bit of fruitiness out of it from the hops, and also from the a little bit, like grassiness and things in there as well. You would expect a little bit of a hoppy kind of quality, as well as a bit more brown sugar from the malt. So yeah, this is pretty damn impressive, I would say. It tells you on the back here, yeah, beech smoked malts, Munich malts, Pat's malts, which I've never heard of, wheat and crystal. Crystal will give you a little bit of brown sugar. I'm surprised they didn't go for like Cara or a bit of Cara Munich or something, but that's interesting. But yeah, take a bit of time and enjoy the aroma of this beer. This is probably the most insane smoky aroma, rauch aroma that I've ever had, actually. So yeah, let's just have a taste of this one then and see how we get on. This one is the Double Denim, a virgin oak, how do we say, a virgin oak aged smoked barley wine at 12.5% from Tempest Brewery in Scotland, in the Borders region down in Scotland, Galashiels. Let's have a taste of this one then. A lovely way to sign off on my Scottish trip this time. Sláinte. Oh yeah, now this is interesting. It's a beautiful beer that the smokiness is not as prominent in the flavour as the aroma would have you believe. You might think that the smokiness is going to dominate the flavour in this one, and the more you go into the aftertaste, it starts to, but when you have this beer on your tongue, it's really got some lovely kind of notes to it. To be honest, what I would say about this beer as well is I can see a lot of people tasting this and saying, oh, this isn't one of the better beers I've had from Tempest, because that smokiness, it's a very acquired taste. You have to remember that about this. But for me, as somebody who loves rauch beers and smoke beers, it's a very unusual way to get into craft beer, of course. But for somebody who loves this type of thing, this is a beautifully done beer. So big thumbs up to Tempest once again. And if anyone's going to think to do a beer like this in Scotland, it would be Tempest. Other breweries are very good at certain things. You've got Vault City with their sour beers, Overtone with the hazy IPAs, Fierce Beer with the fruity beers and the imperial stouts and things like that. But Tempest, these guys are the ones who really just try something a bit crazy, actually, and they've pulled it off very, very well with this. So hats off to them for that. So yeah, where to start with this one then? It covers its alcohol very, very well, actually, but definitely a sipper. In terms of food pairings, this is something you're going to have with a nice steak or a schnitzel or something like that. A nice pork chop, yeah. But straight away with this beer, you get that lovely kind of woody base just blanket in the middle of your tongue. Compared to other barrel-aged beers, this one, I've always said that barrel aging sort of takes the mouthfeel down a little bit. This is one of the thicker barrel-aged beers that I've come across, if not the thickest. And I've reviewed a fair few of them recently, actually. So this one is quite a bit thicker than other ones, but you do get some of those infused flavours in the middle of your palate. But like I say, lovely oaky, smooth note to this one. The further you go into the aftertaste, you start to feel that drying out a little bit. You start to get some of these kind of cherry notes, because what they'll often do is char the inside of a barrel before they age whiskey or beer or whatever inside it. But if it's virgin oak, I'm not sure if they would do that. For me, virgin oak is just a barrel that's not been used before. Correct me on that in the comment section below if I'm wrong. So you won't get any other type of infusions out of this beer. But yeah, that lovely woodiness just blankets the middle of your tongue. It dries out a little bit. You get some of the kind of cherry notes out of it, like I said. You start to feel a little bit of a kind of brown bready, bread crusty thing, and that sits on top of the wood and just goes right across the middle of the palate too. It's definitely got layers to it, this beer, in my mind. But yeah, this is just this is crazy. I really love this beer, actually. I always said that Old Parochial was my favourite beer from Tempest, but this one, it runs it very, very close, actually. This one's a bit more unusual and takes a bit of time to get your head around, but it pushes Old Parochial very close for my favourite beer from Tempest. But I think this one's maybe a little bit of a kind of nostalgia trip in a way as well, because of my love of the Rauch beers. But yeah, this is one that really takes a bit of time to evolve on your palate. In the centre of your tongue, you do get some of the brown sugars, and you can really feel that they are very caramelised and very thick. That comes out a little bit further forward on the palate of this one, but you can really feel the bread crusty and brown bready notes towards the back of the tongue there as well. The brown sugars, the sweetness comes out a little bit further forward in my mind, but you will see that the centre of your palate really dries out a little bit. The smokiness, as I say, it comes across as a little bit meaty, but in fairness, the toasty elements that this beer has from the wood helps dry it out a little bit. So it's not quite as sweet and meaty and things as the aroma gives the impression of. But I will say, it's an awesome beer. It's very quirky. Again, this is one that I find it very difficult to compare to anything else, but it's really damn good actually. But I think it is one that it really needs people that like Rauch beer to taste this one. Have a go at it by all means. But yeah, I can see people say this, you know, if you compare it to Old Parochial, that's a little bit more of a beer that I could see being universally liked. This one is more of an acquired taste. But yeah, this is pretty damn good. Where do we talk about next with this one? Yeah, it really continues to dry out a little bit more the further you go into the aftertaste. On the hoppy side of things, back corners of the palate, you get a little bit of earthiness there. As you come kind of further forward with this one, you can feel the earthiness just spreads forward a little bit. It starts to get a little more grassy and things as you come further forward. There's not really much of a floral character to this one. And the interesting thing is that it's Columbus they've used in this, which is an American hop. For me, bit of gas there, but it's really known for its kind of spiciness. It's usually used as a bittering hop. I'm surprised they didn't use a little bit of, you know, say, yeah, Tettnanger or Hercules, one of the German hops with this beer actually. And it, in fairness, it does give the impression that they have. If I was blind tasting this, I would have guessed they would have used German hops in this. So you get a wee bit of a light floral note there on the front corners of the palate, very hard to detect right enough, but then round the front curve of the palate, it gets that little bit lighter and grassy, I would say. But behind the front curve of the tongue, that's where you get the fruity notes out of the beer. And let's have a look at that then. But yeah, the fruitiness is quite subtle in this. You really have to kind of look for it. But yeah, when you take this one in, as I always say, those fruity esters come out in that little oily bubble behind the front curve of the palate. And if when you take this one in, you do get a little bit of that kind of oily, plummy note out of the beer. There's a wee teeny bit of a raisiny sharpness to it as well. But the further you go into the aftertaste, as you come forward on the palate too, you'll start to get wee hints of like blackberry, blackcurranty type things as well, and maybe a little bit of a figgy juiciness as well. But really it does have a little bit of that berryish quality to it, which is quite interesting. It's interesting this. I'm not sure. This would have been an interesting one, I think, as a Doppelbock. The Berleywine is an interesting route to take with that. I have heard of a few sort of smoked barley wines and things like that. This, I think, might be one of the first, if not the first, that I've tasted actually, and it works. But I get the feeling that this, if they tried it as a Doppelbock, this could have been, it might have been even better than it actually is. That's an interesting point to think. But as I've said, I love my traditional German beers actually, but this is just it's a big smoky monster, this one. It really is an acquired taste, this beer, so be aware of that if you buy this one. For those of you that aren't used to the smokiness, this is probably one that you buy and share between, you know, maybe 3-4 people, something like that. Have a few mils of it. Definitely a sipper. I will finish this off and I'll share it with my dad a little bit, and even as a lover of the big smoky beers, I can see that this is one that you really will take a few hours to go through actually. It opens up very nicely though, it's like a good whiskey. Yeah, the thing we haven't mentioned too much, the elephant in the room with this beer, if you like, is the smokiness, and it's a lot more subtle in the flavour, as I said earlier, than the aroma would give you the impression of. But it's mixing in. For me, it's mixing in with that kind of charred part of the beer and the woodiness, if you like. But it's it really is a very, very nice beer, this one. A double mash smoke beer, you can really get the intensity out of that. But it certainly does work, actually. I would love to see them try this again, either as a Doppelbock. It could work as a Scotch ale, in fairness, as well. Maybe this is a beer that you can age a little bit, but it says it's best before August 2024. Maybe I should have kept this one and aged it a little bit, but I was very curious to try it, in fairness. But yeah, in terms of the barley wine style, it comes across, it's more of an English barley wine, this. It doesn't quite have the levels of sweetness you would expect of an American one. The brown sugars in an American one come across as very bright and very sweet, whereas the English one, they are a little bit more caramelised, and you get some sort of phenolic notes out of this. And the fruits in fairness come out a little bit more American-like, but the brown sugars are more English-like if we think about the barley wine category. But safe to say, to me, this is a really lovely beer, but it's definitely one that ticks my boxes. I can see that this is a beer that a lot of people will consider as an acquired taste, so bear that in mind. But I think Tempest deserve a lot of credit for just trying something like this, so my hat off to them for this. It'd be cool to see to try this again in a couple of years with an aged bottle. I don't know if I'll have the opportunity to get one and age it a little bit, but I'd love to try this in 2024 when it's aged a little bit. So you probably could age it more than that, in fairness. I don't know why they've chosen only it would have been bottled in 2019, I would think, but yeah, I don't know why they've recommended 5 years. You could probably age this longer than that. But yeah, really quirky beer, this one, but that's why I like Tempest. In terms of the mouthfeel then, definitely a big full-bodied beer. Carbonation's very smooth. The mouthfeel overall is big and oily in this one. It does get a little bit dry the further you go into the aftertaste, like I was saying. The malt base on this one is very, very smooth. As I said, it dries out a little bit the further you go into the aftertaste. The smokiness and the kind of cherry notes out of this give you a little bit of that dryness there as well. But in fairness, at the front of the palate you do get a slightly more sweeter note out of it, but the brown sugars in this one are quite toasted and quite caramelly as well. Smokiness lingers throughout this. The hoppiness, there's very little in the way of IBUs with this beer. I'd be surprised if it's more than 20 IBUs, to be honest with you, and you do get a little bit of fruitiness in there as well. It gets a little bit juicier and fruitier the further you go into the aftertaste, but initially you have to search for the fruits. But a beer that does dry out, but it's got a lovely, very infused flavour. I'm surprised with this too that the barrel aging hasn't thinned it out a little bit. It'd be interesting to try the original one that isn't barrel aged, because I'm sure that would be even thicker than this one is now, and that's almost unimaginable with this beer. But a really interesting one to try, and I have to say kudos to Tempest again for even thinking of something like this. So yeah, this was the Double Denim, a smoked barley wine using Bamberg, I'm assuming it's Weirmann Bamberg Rauch malts, coming in at 12.5% from Tempest Brewery in Galashiels down in the Borders. An awesome beer this, and a very interesting way to sign off on my Scotland trip this time. I hope you've enjoyed my take on this one. As always, let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Tempest. As I said, hopefully we can set up a meet the brewer, meet the owner type thing with them on my next trip home. I need to figure out when that's going to be. But thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, check out Tempest Brewing Company, and I will catch you guys very soon. The Double Denim Virgin oak-aged smoked barley wine at 12.5% from Tempest Brewing Company in Galashiels in the Scottish Border region. Until the next time, Slange just now. I'll catch you guys tomorrow with some more Swedish and Danish and other Nordic beer reviews. Slange, skål, cheers, catch you tomorrow.